Scottie's rings are just the same as Michael Jordan's. Why not?
Because he won the best player on the team.
Yeah, but he was the most impactful player on the team.
I get it.
What do you mean he wasn't?
Listen, I get it.
If you unplug Scottie Pippen off that team,
sure,
Jordan's 0 for 6.
I think they're trying to launch another podcast, and what a better way to do it than to keep bringing MJ name up. And you got to bring MJ or Kwame name up. You know, we hot out here, but especially MJ. MJ hadn't played basketball in umpteen years, but everybody and their mama brings up MJ every single day. MJ name is brought up. So
Rich Paul said, take Scottie Pippen off those Bulls teams, and Michael Jordan is 0 for 6. And the second that hit the air, Kwame Brown was never going to let it slide. He came straight for Rich Paul, straight for Gilbert Arenas, and straight for what he believes this whole thing really is. A media push designed to lift LeBron James by cutting Michael Jordan down. Kwame did not soften any of it. So let me ask you this. Is there really such a thing as a sidekick ring? Or is Kwame right that once a team wins a title, a championship is a championship no matter who stood next to who? That is where this whole thing starts. Because everything in Kwame's response comes back to that one comment. That one line is what lit the fuse.
What do you mean he wasn't?
Listen, I get it.
If you unplug Scottie Pippen off that team,
sure,
Jordan's 0 for 6.
Sure, could be. Who knows? But if you
take, could be.
But if you replace
Scottie,
but replace Scottie Pippen with another All-Star, no one does it without another All-Star.
No,
replace him with another All-Star. He's going to win more than one.
You can replace him with another All-Star, but just because it's an All-Star don't mean it's Scottie Pippen.
On his podcast, Rich Paul argued that if you remove Scottie Pippen from the Bulls, Jordan finishes with 0 championships. Then the conversation started drifting into an even stranger idea, that Scottie's 6 rings somehow do not carry the same weight as Jordan's 6 rings. And that was the part that really sent Kwame over the edge. Because once you start acting like one guy's title is worth more than his teammate's title, you are no longer talking basketball. You are pushing something else.
Scottie Pippen rings are not the same as Michael Jordan. So you saying the Scottie Pippen ring is more tonight or something? What the fuck are you talking about? Scottie Pippen ring is the exact same. It's the exact same year. It's the exact same everything. So is LeBron James rings different than Mario Chalmers rings? No. It's the same damn ring. Like, they just get up here and just say stupid shit.
Are going to be willing to take a back seat knowing
100% of every All-Star who ever lived.
That's not true. That's
if
not
you're
true.
playing with Jordan, you got no choice.
No, that's not true because, again, this is where you got to really dive into the type of player. You're talking about just All-Star, okay? Remove that, All-Star. But you're talking about a guy that's 6'9", that plays both sides of the ball, that is 6'7", whatever. He got a 7'3" wingspan, right? He can initiate the offense. The best, you had 3 guys on that team, Jordan, Pippen, Rodman, that were on the all defensive team. 3.
Yeah. Ron Harper should have been on it too.
Ron Harper was another, and that was after Harp.
Now here's where Kwame exposed.
Kwame's first point went directly to the heart of it. Scottie Pippen's rings are the same rings Michael Jordan has. Same championship years, same trophies, same banners, same team, same accomplishment. There is no alternate version of a title where one teammate gets the deluxe model and the other gets a discounted copy. They won together. That is how team sports work. So when somebody tries to make it sound like Pippen's championships somehow count less, Kwame's answer is simple. Then what about LeBron's rings? Are they different from Mario Chalmers' rings? No, they are the exact same ring. Same year, same title, same team. End of story. And that leads into the deeper point Kwame was hammering. The people always trying to cheapen somebody else's championship are usually people who never got one themselves. In his view, that whole sidekick ring idea is bitter talk from people trying to explain away what they never earned. He made it personal on purpose. He said that would be like him going around calling Matt Barnes's ring or Nick Young's ring some lesser type of championship just because he never won one. In Kwame's mind, that whole concept is fake from the start. There is no sidekick ring. There are just rings. You either won one or you did not. Then he turned to what he says is the real game being played here, and this is where his argument starts clicking into place. According to Kwame, Rich Paul and Gilbert Arenas are not just debating basketball in good faith. They are building a narrative, and that narrative always bends the same direction. Minimize Jordan so LeBron rises higher. That is the formula. And to make that work, they suddenly need Scottie Pippen to become almost too important. Almost so great that Jordan supposedly could not function without him. So in one breath they inflate Pippen's value, not because they genuinely want to honor Pippen, but because they want to use him as a tool against Jordan. Kwame says that is where the contradiction starts showing, because the same voices who now want to act like Pippen was powerful enough to make Jordan 0 for 6 are often the exact same people who go on platforms like Gilbert Arenas and call the 90s weak. Brandon Jennings said the 90s were trash on that same platform. So which version are we supposed to believe? Was that era full of killers, meaning Jordan dominated real competition, or was it a weak era full of overrated players? Because if the 90s were supposedly soft, then how does Pippen suddenly become this all-time giant whose presence makes or breaks the entire dynasty? Kwame's point was that they only build Pippen up when it helps them tear Jordan down. The second the conversation changes, they go right back to disrespecting the era that created him. Then Kwame pushed the same logic onto LeBron's career, and that is where he says the double standard gets exposed. Every time LeBron had major help, the same people defending him suddenly start downplaying that help. Bring up Dwyane Wade, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, Ray Allen, Kevin Love, and the answer quickly becomes, well, they were not really that good, or they were past their prime, or they were not the same player anymore. Kevin Love is one of the best examples. Before Cleveland, he was an elite power forward, but once he became part of LeBron's supporting cast, people started reducing him to a floor spacer, just so LeBron's burden would look heavier. Kwame's point is that the standard changes depending on who the conversation is protecting. LeBron's co-stars get minimized so LeBron looks bigger. Jordan's co-stars get magnified so Jordan looks smaller. That, to Kwame, is the tell. It proves the conversation is not balanced from the start. It is not about evaluating teammates honestly. It is about arriving at a predetermined finish line. LeBron must be the greatest of all time, no matter how much bending it takes to get there. So Kwame says if people want to play that game, then they need to keep the same rules across the board. If Jordan supposedly does not get full credit because he had Scottie Pippen, then what about LeBron without Dwyane Wade? Does he win a title? Kwame's answer is no. He believes Miami was where LeBron learned how to win at the highest level. He brings up the 2011 finals, the Dallas collapse, the fourth quarter disappearances, the way smaller players like J.J. Barea and Jason Terry made LeBron uncomfortable in that series. In Kwame's view, without Miami, without Wade, without that environment, LeBron's story looks very different. Then you add Kyrie's shot in 2016, Kevin Love's role, Anthony Davis in Los Angeles, and Kwame's question becomes even simpler. If the presence of elite help takes credit away from Jordan, why does the same rule stop applying when LeBron enters the conversation? But that is what makes the whole argument feel dishonest to him. Rich Paul never uses that lens on LeBron. He saves it for Jordan, and Kwame keeps coming back to the basic truth underneath all of this. Every champion needed a team. Magic needed Kareem. Bird had McHale and Parrish. LeBron had Wade, Kyrie, Ray Allen, and others. Jordan had Pippen. That is not scandalous. That is basketball. Yet somehow nobody runs around trying to strip Magic of his titles because Kareem was there. Nobody calls Larry Bird a fraud because he had Hall of Fame talent beside him. The special rulebook only gets pulled out when the target is Michael Jordan, and Kwame says everybody knows why. Because Jordan's 6 for 6 record in the finals is the one thing LeBron supporters cannot rewrite, replicate, or erase. Kwame also made it clear he was not disrespecting Scottie Pippen in any way. In fact, he gave Pippen real credit. He acknowledged that Pippen was legitimate, that he carried enormous defensive responsibilities, that he guarded the best scorer on the other side night after night, and that people still underrate how hard that job actually is. He even pointed out that Pippen took the Bulls to the playoffs when Jordan stepped away. His issue was never with respecting Scottie, it was with using Scottie dishonestly. There is a difference between saying Pippen mattered and saying Pippen was some secret force proving Jordan was overrated. Kwame says one of those takes is real basketball discussion and the other is agenda talk. He even widened that respect to the rest of the Bulls. Dennis Rodman mattered. Tony Kukoc mattered. Steve Kerr mattered. Ron Harper mattered. Phil Jackson mattered. That dynasty needed all of them. But being important is not the same thing as being the reason Michael Jordan was Michael Jordan. And Kwame's point was that nobody is suddenly pretending Pippen was more impactful than Jordan because they woke up with new respect for Pippen. They are doing it because it helps LeBron's case. Then Kwame got to the motive. Why are Rich Paul and Gilbert Arenas doing this in the first place? In his eyes, the answer is money. LeBron as GOAT content sells. It gets reactions. It gets clips. It gets attention. It gets deals. It gets access. If you push the LeBron narrative loudly enough, there is almost always something waiting on the other side. Another show, another appearance, another streaming platform, another business connection. Kwame's belief is that this whole ecosystem rewards people for protecting LeBron's image and punishes people who break from the script. And then there is Rich Paul specifically. Kwame says Rich Paul has the clearest motive of anybody because he is LeBron's agent. His business, influence, and public identity are tied directly to LeBron James. Of course he is going to push anything that makes his client look bigger. In Kwame's framing, that is not even subtle. That is the job. Push the narrative. Defend the brand. Keep the machine moving. Even if the argument sounds crazy, keep saying it anyway. Another piece that clearly irritated Kwame was what he sees as the hypocrisy around trolling and outrage. He openly admits that he trolls sometimes, jokes sometimes, and stirs things up in his own way. But he says the difference is that Rich Paul does the same kind of engagement bait while pretending it is deep basketball truth. Kwame's view is that if Rich Paul simply admitted he was trolling, most people would laugh and move on. But when he dresses it up like serious analysis while trying to lower Jordan's legacy, that is when Kwame calls him fake. Then the conversation shifted from rings and narratives into leadership, and that is where Kwame made it personal. He contrasted Jordan and LeBron as leaders in a way that revealed what he respects most. In his mind, Jordan earned the right to demand things from teammates because Jordan was doing the hardest work himself. If Jordan barked at somebody, it was coming from a place of sacrifice, intensity, and example. He was defending, diving, grinding, bleeding for the same result. Kwame's version of Jordan is a leader who got in the mud first and then demanded everybody else do the same. LeBron, on the other hand, does not get described that way by Kwame at all. He brought up the famous moment with Mario Chalmers, when LeBron tried to talk down to his teammate about playing defense, and Chalmers snapped back, telling him to stop acting like a baby and just play. Kwame's point was simple. Nobody ever talked to Jordan like that, not because they were scared, but because Jordan was already carrying the burden in every visible way. He was doing the work that gave his voice authority. Kwame sees LeBron differently. More image management, more finger-pointing, less trench warfare. He also made an interesting observation about LeBron's former teammates. In Kwame's view, a lot of those guys go elsewhere and thrive. Alex Caruso is one example he brought up. His read is that some players improve once they leave the orbit of a superstar who, in his opinion, spends too much time directing blame outward and protecting his own image. Whether people agree with that or not, it fits the larger picture Kwame is painting. Jordan, in his eyes, led from within the fire. LeBron, in that version of the story, leads from a safer distance. And then Kwame circled all the way back to the core basketball point. You can respect Scottie Pippen without using him to erase Michael Jordan. Both things can be true. Pippen was essential. Jordan was the engine. And the league already gave us a glimpse of what the dynamic looked like when one was missing. When Jordan stepped away for baseball, Pippen led the Bulls to 55 wins. That is impressive, but they still did not win the title. In Kwame's view, that was the test case. Pippen had his chance to prove how far he could take it without Jordan, and the result was strong, but not championship strong. That is not disrespect. That is just how Kwame reads the evidence. What frustrates him most is that none of this feels honest to him. Rich Paul could have simply said Scottie Pippen was a huge part of the Bulls' success, and most basketball fans would nod and move on. That is a fair take, but he did not stop there. He jumped all the way to 0 for 6, because the point was not to be reasonable. The point was to diminish Jordan as much as possible in order to lift LeBron higher. And Kwame says, that is exactly what the clutch machine requires. Push whatever helps the king, even if it makes no sense once you slow it down and examine it. That is why Kwame's final position never changes. LeBron James is not above Michael Jordan. You can twist the teammate debate any way you want. You can inflate Scottie, shrink Wade, erase Kyrie, reduce Kevin Love, and do all the narrative gymnastics people keep doing. But 6 for 6 is still 6 for 6. Jordan's case does not disappear because somebody built a louder media campaign. And Kwame says the people pushing the opposite view are not doing it because the truth changed. They are doing it because the money points that way. That is the entire point as he sees it. There is no sidekick ring. The same people who disrespect the 90s suddenly need Scottie Pippen to become untouchable when it helps LeBron. And the whole reason any of it gets pushed so hard is because propping up LeBron is profitable. In Kwame Brown's eyes, Jordan is still the GOAT. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your honest opinion below.